Lisa Eldridge is a world-renowned makeup artist and a content creator here on YouTube. Unfortunately, I don't know that much about her, but I know that a lot of other content creators really love her makeup and love her. And she's been suggested to me to watch many times on YouTube, but I haven't. And there's a reason, because I feel like if I knew more about her, then I wouldn't be able to fairly judge her makeup, which has always been on my radar. That's why I bought the Lisa Eldridge Seamless Skin Enhancing Tint. So I like to always unpack why I might have bought something for review. And literally the only reason I bought this is because Kaki directly recommended it to me before she had reviewed it on her channel. And she said, I really think you'd like it. Then a couple of other people I saw were really raving about it. And I was just like, well, I feel like I have to know. The reason I haven't bought anything from Lisa Eldridge up until this point is because I want to do a brand review where I can buy everything from the brand, or one of everything from the brand, and then try it all and then be able to report back to you how I feel about those formulas. Now that there's a little bit more of an offering, this felt like I could review this one off. And whenever I do review the brand eventually, I'll be able to review the foundation at that point, and then I still have a complexion product to play with. It's on my list of to-dos. It's the most highly requested brand review people want from me, but there are some brands that I would like to selfishly explore before then, and that's what I've been doing so far. Also, it's a pretty expensive brand, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. You know, I love a bougie brand, so I'm very into that. I just haven't gotten around to it, but I have built a cart a couple of times on her website. What you should know about me as we go through this: I have pretty oily skin. I'm 33 years old. I'm not quite at the point where I'm really developing super fine lines or anything like that. I'm a little bit on the precipice of that. I keep that in mind whenever I am reviewing complexion products, because that's going to be important to me as I continue to age. I typically look for something with light coverage. I do like skin tints, but the thing that I'm most concerned about whenever I'm looking at a complexion product is blur. I like something that feels like it's giving me a bit of a filter as opposed to something that is doing a lot of coverage. So I feel like this product really aligns with that, which is great, because that's what I'm kind of looking for. I do feel as though I reach for foundations more than I reach for things that are labeled as skin tints, just the verbiage in my brain. I'm not opposed to a skin tint. I really enjoy those too. Quick facts about it: it's $49. You get 1 fluid ounce. It comes in 18 shades, and it's vegan and cruelty free. Just as a heads up, if you ever shop with Lisa Eldridge, not everything is vegan. There's one of her lipstick formulas that aren't, but this formula in particular is in fact vegan. I just want to talk about the packaging. Now, I know this is very similar packaging to her foundation. It's flat on this side right here, and then it's kind of like this pebble shape. Something that's important to know about me: I try really hard not to know anything about a product before I interact with it, because it could do one of two things. It could lead me into believing the product is better than I think it is because it's supposed to do these things, but it also can hurt the product if it doesn't do some of the things that I'm expecting it to do. So I feel like going in neutral and not knowing anything, for me, is the best way I can review. I don't judge anyone who doesn't do that, but I know that there's probably some reason that this is shaped like this that I just don't know about. What I will say is that I kind of like the shape of it because of the way that it's angled. Whenever you set it down on your vanity, if you're applying it with your fingers or something like that, it's still tilted up so that nothing kind of drips out. It is a quirky little design, and what I have noticed, I like to keep foundations in my makeup drawer. They often end up sideways anyway. I'm not so opposed to it. It is different and sleek and eye-catching. I commend them for that. Also, how interesting can you really make something that's coming out of a squeezy bottle? And I was concerned that it wasn't going to be squishy enough based on the shape, but I haven't had any issues getting product out. But obviously I'm still pretty early days. I'm not at the end of the product. We'll see. I don't see a world in which it's going to be hard to get all of the product out of here. I also stop using things when they stop pumping or stop squirting out. I'm not someone who cuts things open, but I'm sure there will be someone else on YouTube who will do that once they completely use this up. It has an agitator in it. I'm not really sure what it is. Maybe it's a metal ball, but there's something in there to stir up the formula. It is suggested that you shake it, and I'm really glad they made it really big. Most brands will just put shake well, and I always miss it. I know there's an agitator in there, and I feel compelled to shake it every time I use it. As far as dexterity goes, it's a little bit slippery. This is all shiny plastic. I don't find it terribly hard to hold, and because of the oval shape, it gives you a little bit of room to work to grip this. So you would probably be able to grab it this way and open it, or with a couple fingers, however your dexterity works. I think you would probably be able to get this open. And like I said, it didn't take much to squeeze it to get product out. It is a little bit weird to interact with the first time you interact with this packaging. Every time I go to set it down, I still try to set it down on this end, even though it's supposed to be that way. But once I realize that, I'm like, oh, that's so much easier than this. Has much less surface area to set down, like the Glossier Skin Tint. It's just something to consider. It's weird, but I don't hate it. I don't think I love it either, but I will say it's unique packaging, and I do give them points for that, because a problem I have with a lot of luxury brands is that their packaging leaves a lot to be desired, and it's pretty uninspired. This feels inspired. It feels like there was a thought put into it. Something I like to do whenever I'm reviewing a complexion product, like a foundation or a skin tint, is I like to look at the ingredients. It's not to find good ingredients. It's not to find bad ingredients. What I'm looking for is just interesting ingredients, interesting assortment of ingredients. So I just do a little bit of research on all of the ingredients in it. Here are my findings. There are coconut alkanes on the ingredient list. I only mention this. I know some people are allergic or have sensitivity to coconut. Just be wary of that if that's you. I know that the foundations have sample packets. I did check the website before I recorded this. There are not samples of this yet. I don't know if that's something that they're planning to do. I think that would be a really good idea. I know that some people have sensitivity to coconut in some applications, but not in all applications. But if you have any kind of sensitivity, I always recommend getting a sample of something first if you can. Because they're a small international brand, I know it can be pretty hard to get samples of unless you have a friend that has it, so you can just like test the formula. That's always what I recommend if you have this kind of things going on. There was one ingredient that I don't think I've seen before. It was called isodecyl, maybe, or isodecyl neopentanoate, and this was third on the ingredient list. According to Paula's Choice, it's an emollient that helps with hydration. This helps product flow and delivers a silicone-like aesthetic with a dry, light finish, and it helps oil-soluble ingredients penetrate the skin more effectively. I have heard some people compare this to the original Kosas oil skin tint. That has not been my experience with it. There are quite a few oils in here. I'm wondering if this is to help people with oily skin be able to use this product. I'm not really sure. I just thought it was like an interesting thing. There are a couple other silicone-like ingredients that aren't technically silicones, but this formula does have dimethicone in it, so it's not silicone-free. I thought for a second when I was going through the list, I was like, oh, did they make this silicone-free? But it's not. Most of the ingredients, as far as like the skincare portion of the foundation, are emollients or like hydrating ingredients, but there was one ingredient that kind of threw me for a loop. Salicylic acid's in there. It's pretty low on the list, so if you have sensitivity to it, or you normally try to avoid that as an active, I don't think that it's going to do too much as far as being in the formula. But if you're not familiar with salicylic acid, it's an exfoliator. A lot of people use it to treat acne. It kind of makes a little bit of sense. Not that I feel like it's been soothing my skin, which there are a lot of ingredients also that are there to soothe the skin. I think this blend was like made to be for most skin types. That's the vibe. There's glycerin in it, but glycerin's not something that's specifically good for people with dry skin. People with oily skin can benefit from glycerin because it's a moisture thing. It's not like an oil thing. I found this ingredient list very, very interesting to just like kind of peruse through. It is a pretty thin formula. It's not super runny though. It holds its consistency and it blends pretty quickly and seamlessly into the skin. So let's talk about the claims. Unique hybrid formula of the enhancing tint works to even skin tone, lift shadows, and tone down redness and boost luminosity. I will say definitely even skin tone, and I definitely think it, does a pretty good job covering a little bit of redness. Obviously it's a skin tint, so it's not going to be a full coverage formula. You know that going into it, I hope. It did even redness pretty well, but I don't have a lot of redness right now, so I can't really say how much it does. I'm assuming if you have a ton of redness, you're still going to see some of that through there. I feel like it definitely evens out skin tone. I don't have a lot of dark circles or dark spots on my face. The lifting shadows I can't really speak to. That's not a concern of mine. It's not something that I particularly deal with. And then it says boost luminosity. I don't find this foundation to be super matte or super luminous. It looks like skin. It looks so much like skin that every time I've wore it on its own, Tiff could not detect that I would have to be like, how does the skin tint look? And they would always be like, you're wearing something? That's how undetectable this is. And I mean that as a presence on the skin too. Like it doesn't feel like you're wearing anything. It just is a very light formula. Ultra lightweight texture. I already said that it is ultra lightweight. A burst of hydration, delivering blurring pigments to perfect and even the skin tone. I would say that this formula is pretty blurring. If you know, you know I love a blurring product. And I think this does a really good job. Is it the most blurring formula I've ever worked with? No, I don't think it's more blurring than something like the Surratt Dewdrop foundation, but I think the finish of this lends itself better to reducing the appearance of pores, because I find that this is more like a skin finish as opposed to being something super, super luminous, which it sounds like it's claiming to be luminous, but that has not been my experience because I've worn this without powder, but I have seen my friends wear it and it looks really luminous on them. Skin is soothed, smooth, and strengthened. I can't speak to that. All I can say is that the ingredients seem to align with those claims. However, as I always say, I don't think you should be utilizing foundation as skincare. Foundation foundation is foundation, your skincare is skincare. Even if your skincare is just cleansing and moisturizing and you're looking for certain things in those two things, I don't think that this is going to do anything unless you are truly wearing so much of it every day that it might do something. There's always layers between your skin and whatever you're putting on top of it. Hopefully you're wearing SPF. There's no SPF in this product. You can't even pretend to use it as SPF because there just isn't any there. So you're at least, because you're someone who wears sunscreen, you're at least going to have that as a layer between that and your skin. It's just not going to penetrate the skin as well. So something to consider. The tone perfecting crease proof formula means it also works like a dream under the eyes. Again, I don't have dark under eyes, so I can't speak to the claim that it brightens the under eyes and evens that out in any capacity because I just don't have that issue. However, I will say I do have problems with things creasing under my eyes quite a bit. I have a pretty deep fold under my eyes and product really likes to get caught in there and just kind of boop, call it the product gutter. I can't say that it's 100% creaseless, but I think it is the thing that has creased on me the least out of like any formula, concealer, or otherwise under my eyes. Because I probably wouldn't really use concealer with this. I'm throwing this on my face and going out the door. It's something more every day as opposed to evening. Although I did wear it in the evening and it looked beautiful. I feel like it's multi-purpose, but that also depends on what you're looking for your skin to look like when you're going out at night. I've tried it every way I can apply it. Let's go through them and I'll tell you the experience of it. So the first way I applied it, I used my fingers. And I feel like that's the way to go whenever you're using a skin tint. Most skin tints are designed to be used with your hands. If you're not someone who likes to apply things with your hands, maybe it's not for you. Spoiler alert, I didn't have issues with the other ways of applying it either. But I would say I probably will be applying this with my fingers the most and then probably a brush second. But I really like applying it with my fingers. It's definitely a formula that feels like it was designed to be used with your fingers because once it gets applied to the skin, it really seamlessly blends into the skin and then you don't really have too much remnant on your hands. That way you can just kind of go on with your day, although you probably are going to wash your hands either way. That's kind of how I am. Even though I know that there's really nothing left on it, it's like, well, I'm going to have to wash my hands. Then I applied it with my brush. I normally use my Sonia G Jumbo Base or the BK Beauty 101 to apply foundations. For skin tints, I typically use this brush. Now, this company doesn't make this brush anymore. It's from Makeup Designery or Mud Makeup. It's the 710, but it's just a very fluffy brush. And I'm not even sure that they designed this with foundation or complexion product in mind because our kits were very limited when I was in beauty school, but that's how I got this. I didn't research and buy this on my own. It just came into my life. Applying it with this brush was really nice. I also applied the Glossier skin tint with this, and so it works with either or. I do feel like the coverage was a little bit lighter with it because, you know, the bristles are eating a little bit of the product, but it still applied beautifully, and I don't feel like I used much more than I did with my fingers to apply it with a brush, so I was really okay with that. Again, it blended out seamlessly, looked really good with that. Finally, I did use a sponge to apply it, and I did pick up the product from a mixing palette with the sponge and applied it to my face. I always do it that way as opposed to dabbing it on with my finger because for me, the whole point of using a sponge would be to not have to use my fingers. If it doesn't pick up well and apply from the mixing palette or like the back of my hand, I try really hard not to have anything on my hands if I don't have to or if the product doesn't call for that. So if I'm going to bother to use a beauty blender or a beauty sponge, it's got to come directly from the mixing palette and go to my face. I will say I used a lot more product. Again, it's a sponge. It's soaking up a little bit of the product, but it did also apply beautifully that way. I didn't have any issues with streaking or like things not melting into the skin, but I know a lot of people like to follow up with a sponge to just completely smooth things out, and it will work perfectly fine. It looked good with the sponge too. I will say this product has such perfectly sheer coverage, and it's not a lot of coverage, and admittedly we've already talked about it, but like sometimes a brush versus a finger versus a sponge, you'll get a little bit of a different finish or a different way it will look. I felt like it was pretty consistent across the board. No matter which way I applied it, it kind of looked the same. Typically, if I use a dampened beauty sponge, it does have more of a glowy effect, but that seemed to dissipate. It didn't like carry that all the way through the day. I did like an 8 or 9 hour wear test of it. I did it like during my work day. I started at like 5:45. That was right after application. And I only powdered the center of my face and under my eyes for that. So anything outside of that realm wasn't powdered at all. And I didn't powder like up here on my forehead, just kind of like right between the eyebrows, down the nose, and then under the eyes and around the nose right here. At the 4-hour check-in, or like the 4 or 5 hour check-in, I don't remember exactly when I checked in because my regular work schedule has been a little bit weird. We've had like some different pacing. I checked in on a break and it was like a little bit longer than usual. I really didn't see oil breaking through at the 4-hour mark, which is weird, especially for my skin. The 4-hour mark is probably some people's end of the day. Like that's how much oil I typically produce. I don't know what is in this product that is helping with oil control and making my skin look and that's not like dry or anything like that, but it's just, I don't know what it's doing because there was nothing really in the ingredient list that would associate itself to quick drying or matteness or like oil control. There was like nothing I really saw in the ingredient list that would be like an oil control product. I don't know what did that. And then at the end of the day, it looked great. It looked like my skin. It just looked a little bit oily, but also didn't look like anything was sitting on top of my skin, which typically towards the end of the day, if I'm not powdering, even some of my most favorite foundations will start looking a little worse for wear at that point. But I'm not looking for makeup for like long time wear. It really lasted the whole day. Like, I don't think I looked like I needed to touch up, but I did powder my face. It took the powder well at the end of the day and it still looked really, really beautiful. So I would say that's a pretty big win. That's definitely the most impressive wear time I've ever gotten out of a complexion product on a day wear without doing other things to improve longevity. Because if I go out at night, it's like there's more powder involved. I'm using a more intense setting spray, but I did not spray this at all after I finished a little bit of powder that I did in the center of my face for that test. I'm very, very impressed with it. Let me share my final thoughts. I think that this product is incredible. I think it's amazing. I think it's the most exciting thing that I've tried in a long time. As far as like what I am into, which I'm a foundation girl, you know, I love to test complexion products because it's my favorite step, but I know not everyone's really into this, but I find this formula incredibly easy to use. It doesn't feel like you have to baby it. It wears really well all day. It wore really well on my oily skin. I have seen reviews from my friends with dry skin. They've had equal success with it. It made my skin look glorious, but still incredibly undetectably natural. Something that I think is a feat that a lot of complexion products really miss. And Lisa really, really hit the nail on the head with this formula. There are three things I would like to compare it to. The first thing I thought of the first time I wore it is it reminded me a bit of the Fenty Eavesdrops. I did not give that a favorable review because it did not look good on my skin after hours of wear. It was like kind of, you know, breaking apart and not looking really good. And whatever the mattifying agent in that broke up on my skin and it like, you know, parted the seas where my pores are a bit larger, which is a no-go. I didn't find that a very good formula. This feels like what that formula was trying to do, but done seamlessly and perfectly. Another thing I'd like to compare it to, if you tried the lab sample release of Ritual Defee's foundation, not the way it currently is, but the original 3-drop lab sample release, which I liked. But this is the actual version of that. Like it blurs, it doesn't really have much coverage. It just makes your skin look incredible with very little effort. This is really it. But I think that this makes more sense. Is it more user-friendly than that formula was? So I think, again, hit the nail on the head. Incredible. It is what that I think was trying to be, that original formula. But I think Lisa figured out how to do it where Ritual Defee kind of pivoted and made that foundation something different than what it was whenever it was a lab sample. And then the last thing I'd like to compare it to is the Glossier Skin Tint. To me, there's no contest about which one I think is better for me, and it would be the Lisa Eldridge. That does not mean I don't love this anymore. This has a lot dewier of a finish, but it also has incredible amount of blur. I find that this just kind of wears off the skin throughout the day. It's not something for great longevity, but it still makes my skin look really good, and it's not like it wears off in an ugly way like the Eavesdrops did on me. Still think this is a really good product, but like if you're looking for a more dewy finish, then I think this would still be the way to go. This is definitely more of a skin finish. It looked like skin on me. I've seen other people get it to look really glowy. Not that I couldn't get it to look really glowy. I just wanted to know what it could do on its own. On its own, it just looks like skin. Where this also looks like skin, but it's like skin immediately after skincare kind of look. And this is like, just looks like my skin. Is incredible. I wore this over every primer I own except for the Ritual Defee Thorn Oil because it was working well with what I normally use. I wore it only over skincare. I had the same, it applied just as beautifully no matter really how I applied it or what I applied it over. It worked very well. It was very agreeable with like everything I did to it. Powders went over top of it well, creams went over on top of it well, and it stayed like that. And like I'm using stuff that I'm very familiar with when I'm doing the testing. So stuff that doesn't usually lift and it didn't move around. It's just a really, really, really good product. I'm very impressed with it. And I wasn't really expecting to be because again, I don't know much about Lisa, and that's not to say that she's not very talented. I'm sure she is. And that's not to say that I don't think she makes good product. I was fairly sure she did. She always gets reviewed very well. I really had no precedence for this other than what I hear people say about the brand. And now I'm a pretty firm believer that I bet I would get along with a lot of what this brand makes, which is very exciting. Complexion as of recently has been trying to do more than we need it to. And this feels like it really simplified it for me. As something that is everyday for for it to be $49. Like, if this was all I was wearing every day, because this is just what I was wearing all the time, that would feel kind of steep for me to update on monthly. You're gonna call me out, you're gonna say like, Tom, you have more expensive foundations. I'm just considering that like there are people who aren't like me and do wear their makeup every day. And I just think re-upping on this every month or every couple of months just would be a little bit expensive for a skin tint. It just feels like a little bit overpriced. Not that I think that it's not worth the $49. I just think as like, if you're gonna burn through it regularly, it might not be worth it. I like expensive foundations, but I'm not wearing Surratt Dewdrop every day. That's something that I like to wear on camera. It's something I like to wear when I have something important to do. I like to wear my Terracotta Le Tint on days where I'm going to go out at night and I'm going full glam. Do you know what I mean? This is supposed to be something that's meant for the everyday. And I think at that price point it's like maybe just a little more that I would want to pay for every day. But it's not that I don't think it's worth it. It's just, you know, for what it is against like the price point of something like the Glossier, it just feels like a little expensive. I think this is incredible and I would absolutely buy it again. I recommend it, and I don't really think I have any hesitations about recommending it to anyone that isn't allergic to any of the ingredients in it. I think that most people will find high use value in this. And that's a pretty big claim coming from me because I normally have issues with products like this. And it's interesting because I don't want to like sit here and like overclaim how good it is. Just know that I don't usually talk about product in such a way where I'm just incredibly impressed with it. The thing was, I was skeptical the whole time. I was like, there's no way it's gonna be good today. And then I just kept wearing it for a week and a half and I was like, well, I guess it really is. I guess it really is. Like, it is that good. The first time I put it on, I was like, just like, okay. And then the way it performed day after day, and it just continued to not throw any curveballs at me. I think that's pretty incredible. Like, it just worked exactly the way I expected it to. I didn't feel like I had to look up the brand to see like how to apply it. Like, it just felt very intuitive to use. I wore the shade T3 if you happen to be a skin twin with me. I know that Khaki, the shade 2, works better for her. So if you have more yellow leaning skin, I would go with shade 2. If you have slightly rosy undertones, I would go with shade 3. There is a lighter shade, T1, that has also rosy undertones. I think this was just listed as neutral. That was the one that worked for me. Normally at the end of my videos, I talk about whether or not I'm going to keep a complexion product or not. I'm working on a different complexion video where I'm going to be reviewing quicker than what I did with this foundation with some other things I've been testing that I don't feel like need to have their own video. That will be out soon enough. And in that video, you will get face comparisons of everything against everything. So I'm just working on getting all of the B-roll for that as at my leisure, I guess, because that's what I want to do. I want to do kind of like a speed run. And then I am indexing all of my foundations so that going down the line as I declutter foundations, because I don't like to hold on to things, I will still be able to show you side by sides of all of the other foundations I've ever tried, starting with this group of foundations I currently have. You'll be able to see the colors versus the colors. I will swatch on my arm all of the colors. I'm just not going to do that in that video. So if you happen to be new to my channel and you're interested in that kind of thing, I would love to have you subscribe. I do reviews like this very occasionally on my channel, but my channel is mostly dedicated to loving all the makeup I've already purchased, giving that some love. I was someone who used to overspend on makeup. So I try to help myself and help you be more discerning about the makeup that we potentially could buy. Trying to really look at our collection first before we buy something that will just be either excess or not be as loved because we were feeling sad or we just wanted to spend money, or, you know, like there's so many reasons we would just buy something and like probably know in the heart of hearts that's not going to work out for us. So I just try to do work to avoid that on my channel. I have Patreon and channel memberships. Those help me buy things like this to review for the channel. So if you're interested in that, you can join over there. I do additional content over there. My podcast with Khaki is released weekly over there, and I also do one additional video myself every month. But there's no pressure to join my Patreon or my channel membership. They're both the same, by the way. If you are liking, commenting, and sharing this content, that's the best way to support me. But thank you to all my current patrons and members. You are so fab. You don't even know how much burping I've had to edit out of this video. It's bananas. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at hautemesstom over there. I don't think the next video is going to be Critical Sass, but that's coming soon. So stick around, stay tuned. And okay, remember to follow your haute and you'll find me. And I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth, tits out. Bye-bye.